Get the minutes here for this meeting. Huh? What? Turn on the minutes of the meeting? Oh, oh. Hey, two crappies, they left one. So, in Sula, and Murph went to the flower, I mean, the flower. He called me, he was on the boat. I'll call you when I come back. He's over the boat. And when I come back, I'll be ready to go play golf with you in Florida, John. You want another vacation? So let me, you went to the Pawtucket Country Club to get the check from,
I was
oh,
home, so I told,
no, but you're talking about when we play golf. Because he said to me, I don't know if I'll give you the check. I'll turn it. And then you
Sit
stop by
down.
to get it. We were still there though. Yeah, that's not. That's what happened. So you go to the reference when I left. No, golf is still busy. He said in a different table. I showed it on. The next one up, right? That is, yeah. We gotta help down a little bit. We're gonna have lunch with someone. Stand up, you know what I'm saying? Follow with them, yeah? Oh, yeah. And, oh, did you meet with them? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
so now you,
Mm. You know, you work with it. Huh? Yeah, yeah. But it's not funny either. So, no, yeah. My house, no, I did. Public comment. It's coming. The bright lights up there.
It's the same. Okay. It is 6:36 p.m. I will now call the meeting to order. Madam Secretary, can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Farrier,
Present.
Mr. Lewis,
Present.
Mrs. Perry is here, Mr. Rogers,
Here.
Phila,
Here.
Mr. Sulo,
Here.
Mr. Tavares,
Here.
Mr. Vinatiero,
Here.
Chairman Furtado.
Next item,
Public comment and communications.
or anyone from the public?
Old business. Vote for resolution of City Council on up or down vote for charter amendments.
So I'm going to withdraw this item. Some of you may know, I spoke with the city council at a meeting following our last, and we were trying to communicate a way to explain the role of the Charter Commission in relation to the city council. And I want to apologize to everyone here because I was under the impression that what this commission was supposed to be was a collaborative body between the city council, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. However, the response that I received from the council, or at least certain members from the council, was somewhat short of that. It was stated in no uncertain terms that many of the substantive ideas, recommendations that we had already tossed around would not be considered by them. We had spoken previously about expanding the council to 7 members. That wasn't something that we had voted on or recommended, but that was immediately tossed out in conversation. I was very disappointed in that. I want to make clear to everyone on this commission, appointed or elected, that when the people of East Providence voted for a charter commission, they voted for an independent body, specifically because there were issues arising between the separation of powers for the executive and the legislative branches of the government here. And while our function is to make recommendations and pass them on to the city council, we are not subservient to the city council. We do not report to the city council. They do not decide when we are created, when we adjourn. They do not set a timeline for when we present our recommendations. Now, out of courtesy, we have based our schedule around what they have asked for. We have decided to try to accommodate them in terms of changes to be presented. But one thing that I will not stand for is terms to be dictated on what we are to consider. As far as I am concerned, as far as this commission has been formed, the city council, their role is to create a commission, put it on the ballot, which was done with the last commission. Commission was formed, approved by the voters, is now formed, it is open. We are a standing commission. We make recommendations. We have to meet at least monthly, to comply with the charter. And when we see fit, we can pass those recommendations to the council. Once we have done that, the council can choose to accept them, reject them, change them any way they want. They are the final arbiters of what goes on the ballot. At the end of the day, that's what we do. We recommend. But I don't want anyone to think that what we do here is unimportant. And perhaps I gave the wrong impression when I was speaking with the council, because I know I've tried to put a lot of emphasis here on collaboration between the executive and the legislative branches and us in asking for input. But with this council and the responses that we received from that meeting, I don't think it was malicious in nature. I think it was due to simple incompetence. And I think this council's still a little bit wet behind the ears when it comes to governance. So that being said, I think the best thing we can do is what some members have suggested previously, which is to sort of silo ourselves off for the meantime. We've received recommendations from the administration. I've spoken with the mayor. He has been very open about making department heads available when we get to certain sections of the charter. For instance, finance, we can ask for the department head to be here, ask them questions, have a subject matter expert. And in that case, we can do our due diligence, go through the charter, make the recommendations that we see fit, and then when we are ready, we can present this to that council. And maybe by then, will have gotten their act together and they can do their portion of this job. But until then, what I'd like to see is just the group of us pressing on and continuing to do our jobs. So with that, thank you. I'm going to withdraw this item from the agenda.
Through the chair. Are you acknowledging me? If I may ask the solicitor a question, is this resolution or any resolution, if it were passed, is it binding?
No, it's not.
Okay, well, I was asking the solicitor. Okay, I know it's not, but we agree with that, Dylan? Okay, thank you. With that being said, and the council's made it clear when you were there, that they didn't want to be told what to do. The way I read this resolution, it's kind of telling them or suggesting to them what they should do. With that being said, I would like to pull it off the table and make a motion to defeat this resolution. That's in the form of a motion.
Bruce, I already withdrew the motion. There's nothing to vote on.
I don't think, my opinion, again, I have the right to make a motion. People can vote against it. I think the council should not feel that we have a resolution that we could bring up at any time and tell them or suggest to them how they should be conducting their business. It's the council's duty. We're advisory to the city council. It's their duty to put on the ballot or not put on the ballot questions that the city taxpayers, that the city voters can vote for or against. We are just advisory. We can say anything we want, we can do anything we want, but the council has final say. That's the way this was written. When they formed the Charter Commission, which was the old council, it still was a council. I believe that we should let them do their business, just recommend to them what we think after we debate it, what we think is best to put on the ballot for the people to vote on. If they choose not to, they choose not to. If they choose to do it, they should choose to do it. I don't think any up or down vote, any way to do their business is going to help the situation. And they've made that clear at the last meeting, some of them.
Yeah, Bruce, I failed to see how that's any different than what I just said.
I still make the motion.
I've already withdrawn it. There's no motion to make.
I can pull it off the table. Mr. Solicitor?
Next item.
I'm
Chairman, point of clarification. First of all, I was a little disappointed with the approach at the city council because I thought you did a good job. You went in the front of the city council. You got elected by the folks in the city of East Providence to be on a charter commission. But if we go back, and I was a little confused with the council, the way, I think we all know because I was chairman of the Democratic Party, I pushed hard then. Julie knows that. I appointed a committee back then to go with the mayor form of government. Sandy Barone was the leader. Julie was very, very instrumental in helping out and half of the body of the Democratic Party, they opposed. They were not in favor of the mayor form of government. But slowly mistakes were made with the city council by firing the city manager. And over the years, I kept meeting, including with you, Bruce, when you were on the city council, to change the mayor form of government. And all you need really, what do you need? You need the city council. But I always felt that it was important to have 5 solid votes to pass the resolution and place it on the ballot. Had nothing to do with the last commission that we had, the Charter Commission. We already had passed the mayor, what we did the last time. And over the years, I met with Mr. Connolly. He was on the council. I met with the Joy from Riverside. If you remember clearly, Bruce, you just brought in a city manager. And I believe then, and I believe now, if we didn't have I backed off. But the next council, we pushed, I did, John Ferrier pushed, and I'm not here to brag. I just want to set the record straight because I'm hearing the conversation of saying, well, you know, the mayor this, we want a strong mayor, but back in the day, they met in restaurants. Time out. I met with the city council. Brito was in favor. We didn't have the city council because we need that third vote, and the third vote was, which I was proud of the young man, and that was Elder Cunha. And Elder Cunha said, John, I don't support. And I think the message, I said, Elder, you may not want to support the mayor form of government. That's okay. But allow the people to make that determination. We didn't have a charter commission. We didn't have a charter commission. Then the charter commission was established, it was after we already had voted. Am I correct, Julie? Huh?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out where you're going with this.
So I'm not wrong because I'm getting older. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, it was established after the fact. I was here at the meeting. Julie was here. My committee was here. And finally, we got a lot of support from the Democratic Committee to go in that direction. I met several meetings with Elder Cunha, and thank Elder made the right decision. Elder, you may not like the mayor form of government. However, allow the people to make that determination. And that evening, what we had here, it was 4 votes, including, it was Conley from Riverside, it was Brito, Elder, and Tommy Rose. We've got the 4 votes because the person who couldn't make it that evening, if anyone remembers, it was Stacy, okay? Then the Charter Commission was formed to do what? To make the changes, city manager versus the mayor. That was the language that we changed. And when we passed the resolution on the ballot with the mayor, it was a 2-year term. And then when we met with the Charter Commission, then we decided as a committee that the 2-year was not good. We extended, then we voted on 4-year terms. And that's what happened. So when we had and then of course we changed the language and all that. So now I want you, just for point of clarity, the language, or the mayor form of government, it was voted the elections prior of establishing the Charter Commission. When we established the Charter Commission, we already had the mayor form of government. The only thing that was changed, it was established to do what? It was to change the language, where they occurred, the city manager, it was changed to, to the mayor form of government, and that's what we did. And then it was 4-year terms that we voted the Charter Commission. For the city council, for the 4-year term, because it was that dispute, it's a 2 years, it's a 4, and for the mayor, a 4-year term. That's pretty much what happened. And then this committee was established. And I made it very clear early on that I said that I nominated the young man, our chairman, because of the fact he was part of the administration when the city manager, the mayor went into effect. There was a lot of things that it was hard to function, and I was watching the city council meetings, and I know that Mark even then wrote some of the language that we're going to be talking about, okay? So, but I just want to point a clarification that the mayor form of government, it was voted upon prior. It was no Charter Commission. It was, I met with all these folks, with my organization, the Democratic Party. We finally were pretty convincing it was time to change. If you remember, it was about 3 or 4 city managers who were terminated. And you all know the reason why, because the council wanted to play footsie. 3 votes. I don't like the city manager, he's out of a job. And you remember exactly, because you're all political. You all watch the city council. Okay? So, and then it passed when it was on the ballot by 75% of the vote to have a mayor form of government. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted that point of clarification. But in addition to that, yeah, I was disappointed because I thought you did a good job. Okay, and I think the council has got to respect this committee. I understand they get the final say. I have no problem with that. We know that's the city council. But you could have done that. You could have been a lot more diplomatic by carrying the message instead of saying, we're not going to play ball back and forth. I just, and I'll leave it as that. I just was a little disappointed because I think we're all trying to do our best to change the charter. Now, do you really need a Charter Commission? I've been saying this from day one. The answer is no. There was no Charter Commission when we changed the mayor form of government. The city council has the power to pass a resolution to put anything on the ballot. We know that. So there's nothing wrong with this resolution of saying you vote up or down. There's nothing wrong with that. The council can still make the decision. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman. I understand that your suggestion was to pull the actual resolution. I just have a couple questions because even prior to pulling it, of course, it was supposed to be tabled until this meeting. So I'm a little confused on how it even came up at a council meeting before we had a chance to discuss it and push it through as a body. It was mentioned. Okay. My second question is, and it comes back to a comment that we made last time. I really, and I'll do it in the form of a motion if it needs to be, I really feel like we need to have a policy on how we're going to accept information from the council. I understand that you allowed text messages to come through last time from one city council member. I'm not against getting information from the city council, but if they're proving that you go before them and they're not taking our commission seriously, then I feel that there should be a policy in place that every council member either has to submit it the same way, the request from us, or they have to do it as a body. So we know as elected as an elected body and an appointed body, however we want to say, because half of us are appointed, the other half elected, we need to know that they respect us as much as we are supposed to respect them. And I've watched the city council meetings, and I'm not impressed with the stuff that was being said. I'm not happy with some of the council, and I encourage the commissioners that have not watched previous meetings to go back and watch them on YouTube, because you will get enlightened on how our city council actually feels right now. But and I will do it in the form of a motion. I want to set a policy, because we can't be having procedures like this happen. You can't be putting things forward and then having to pull them off the table because they're not happy that we're discussing something. And they should not be allowed to text message or send pigeon carrier or, pass notes like in third period and expect us to get the same response and the same respect that everyone else gets. So I would like that. I would like to see a policy put together, put forth, and I asked the city solicitor to make sure that I'm not asking for anything that is illegal.
You're not asking for anything that's illegal, but you wouldn't be able to bind the council. The council could still do and approach the situation in whatever manner they seem fit. They could do it both as a body in whatever manner they see fit. They could do it individually as council members in whatever manner they see fit. And actually underneath public comment as a private citizen, they could approach this body in whatever manner they see fit. The only way that you can control presentations is during a meeting. You can control what will make it onto the agenda. Something needs to be submitted 5 days in advance in order for it to be placed on the agenda, or sort of the length of comment during public comment in order to do that. These are all First Amendment standards. You have to have the same length established for everyone that will ever speak, and it has to be established prior to anyone starting to speak. The only exception for that is if someone is actually disturbing the ability of this board to perform its business, then you can basically tell the person they can't contribute the way that they're trying to contribute. But there's nothing that prohibits you from setting out how you wish all this commentary to be received, but that doesn't prohibit them from doing it in another manner.
Chair, I still feel there's nothing wrong with the resolution. I mean, if you all watch the city council meeting, and I'm going to be honest, we all know each other. And if you agree with that approach of the city council, well, let me tell you something. That was a disrespect to the chairman. That was a disrespect to this body. We're all here to do one thing, is to do what's the best for the city, to make sure that this city functions properly for the council and for the administration. That's why we're here. But I thought that approach was totally wrong. Because even with the resolution, we know it's not binding. It's non-binding. If they felt that they don't want to put on the ballot, well, all they got to do, just like the previous council did when we were on the Charter Commission, they put it aside. Okay? But I think you deserve a lot more respect. And I thought, to be honest with you guys, that someone here today would be upset with that. And all I'm hearing is we're going to remove the resolution. Well, I was upset because there was no need to be treated that way. I felt like a 5-year-old. And if you didn't feel like that way, I mean, there's something wrong. I mean, I'm not disrespecting you, but I thought, did you all watch the city council?
Yes.
What did you think of it? Just tell me. Let's talk about it. Because it's not just me.
I was
the
upset
council
that it
needs to
was
know
even-
that we're pretty upset.
Honestly,
I know you did.
I was upset that it was
Yeah.
even being discussed when it was a tabled agenda item for this commission, that we as a commission didn't even have an opportunity to discuss it and decide what the language we wanted to go forward. That's honestly how I felt.
I felt I was insulted.
I'm insulted.
I was insulted because I put the two end items on that agenda the last meeting. I didn't try to recreate the wheel like it was indicated. We're not supposed to try to prevent the wheel. And the thing he said about the 7-member council, 8 cities in the state, 7 of them have more than 7 councilmen. So it wasn't inventing the wheel. It was something I thought we needed to discuss. And to be told at a council meeting that was something I wasn't supposed to do. Basically, that's what he's saying, that it wasn't our job to do that. I was insulted.
Yes, it is. No,
I'm also confused too, and I'd like a point of clarification, how the city council can meet individually or together on items. We're told we're not supposed to be discussing things. Where's the rolling meeting going? Because there was things being discussed before that meeting ever hit. It was getting back to us that we weren't supposed to be having these conversations. So where's the legality? We're supposed to follow open meeting practice, but we already have council people that are telling us that they're not even going to listen to us. Where's the legality there for what rules are they following that we're supposed to follow? Because I'm elected to represent Ward 2. As a committee member of Ward 2, as a commissioner of Ward 2, I need to be able, when people meet me in the street and say to me, Julie, am I going to have the right to vote on this? And I have to say, well, really, you got to talk to your city council. But my feeling is, yes, you should have the right to vote on it. And this is why I'm giving up time of my life to sit on this commission to do it, because I know everybody here is busy. So none of us are, not taking time out of our lives to do this. So I'm insulted too by the council, but I'd like to know legality wise, how can the city council make a decision that they're not going to listen to us? And if we don't do what they're pretty much saying, they're not even going to listen to us. They're not going to put it forward. How can they be having meetings about that? How's that coming up? And how's that legal? Can anybody answer that?
they need to pass, Mr. Chairman, they need to pass a resolution, whatever we submit to the council, whatever changes here. I said from day one, I'm going to stick with it, okay, is that whatever we decide as a group, the majority, on a charter change, I believe, even though they make that determination, that they have an obligation and the responsibility to place it on the ballot and let the voters of the city of East Providence decide if it's acceptable or not. Because then obviously we're going to be wasting our time. I like this, I don't like the other one. I mean, you know, are we here to do a job? The answer is yes. Now, if you look at the day one that we met, and the reason why I'm taking a little bit longer is because we need to move forward in a positive way and get things done. I made a motion here, and it's on the record here, to meet once a week. They get defeated 8-1, and that's okay. Then a second motion was made, and they carry 7-0, 9-0, to meet once a week. The council didn't like that. Then we all got a letter that they recommended that we should meet once a month. Well, we didn't have to meet once a month, but we did to cooperate with the council. Am I correct? Yeah, cooperate with the council. So we agreed. So we've been meeting once a month because I was under the impression that they wanted to pass this in 2022 in the special elections. But respectfully, I understand they made it very clear that they didn't want to do that they wanted on 2024. No problem. So we backed off. What we're doing now is what? Meeting once a month. You know, once a month, by the time I come in, I forgot, you know, I mean, I had supper last night. But so anyway, we respect them. So there's some disagreements here that we're doing that with good faith. There was no fight. There was no, listen, do you want it once a month? I didn't like it, but I didn't come here, you know, and say, well, we should still meet once a week. We're meeting once a month. So I just think that, and we're going to move forward. I just think that they need to respect this body a little bit more. And I don't have the solution as far as going forward. We all know, and I know, and you know, that at the end of the day, it's the council who makes that determination if it's going to go on the ballot or not. They're going to vote to accept the resolution. So now you got to think to yourself, what do we do going forward? Are we going to be effective? Is it going to be only what the city council wants to place on the ballot? Or they're going to be receptive of some of the issues that we have? So I guess time will do it. So I am in favor of moving forward, do what we have to do with good faith, betterment of the city. That's what I meant. So, but I was offended by that meeting, and I don't care who it was. It could have been the mayor, it could have been the governor. You don't talk to the chairman the way it was talked. And
Mr.
by the way,
Chairman.
the city council keeps saying, I get phone calls. I get a lot of phone calls from friends of mine in the city that they were very, and I'm not talking about names. You know where it was. Very disrespectful to the chairman. That bothered the hell out of me because he's my chairman right now.
Mr. Chairman, has there been anything in writing, any resolution or anything delineating exactly what this Charter Commission is responsible to do?
Besides what is specifically in the charter.
Right. I mean, has there been anything saying that we should only go through certain portions of the charter or, nothing was ever said that we weren't supposed to go through the entire charter, correct?
And I believe on the first meeting, I think Bob Roderick's handed us something that was from him, but that's a personal opinion expressed from him. That's not a request on behalf of the council. So, but in terms of what we as a commission are supposed to do, go through the charter. That is our mandate. We can choose to only take up a few sections of the charter or go through the whole thing, but essentially, for lack of a better term, it's Pandora's box. Once they open it, they can't close it. So they can't say, oh, you can't consider this motion, you can only consider this section of the charter. It's up to us to determine what we will and will not take up.
Well, that's why I was surprised when I watched that council meeting, because the remarks that were made is that we were not supposed to be doing this or doing that, only what, they had want us to
They
do.
can say, we're not going to approve of this, or they can change the language of something that we present, or they can come up with something that we didn't present to them. But they can't tell us that we can't consider something. That's entirely up to us. We reviewed the charter. That is our mandate for existing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so you're stating that the charge that we received from Council President Robert Rodricks is his personal opinion? It's not the actual charge to this council? To this Charter Commission?
Correct.
Then what's our charge? Because I never received one when I was elected. And when you sign up for any position in this city, canvassing is supposed to give you a charge. If I was to go right now and, and sign to become a senator or a rep, you get a list of what the job is entitled. So if this isn't the job, what is it? Mr. Solicitor?
Sure. The job of the Charter Commission is set forth by the charter. There's a description that it happens on basically an 8-year cycle, and there's a goal time period in which recommendations are made to the council. That's not mandatory as I review it. The role of charter commissions has actually been litigated a great extent in the state of Rhode Island because we're a home rule charter state. The Rhode Island Constitution gives great power to its municipalities and how it sets its own rules and laws and the powers of its charter. The role of the Charter Commission underneath that case law is historically been 2 tiers. One is the original creation of a charter. There's a special role for a Charter Commission at that point in time. Then secondarily, there is any Charter Commission created after a charter is already in existence. When you're in the position that a Charter Commission is acting when a charter is already in existence, you are advisory. So your charge is to advise the council in any manner you see fit.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that. But what's happening now is, and I think I'll go a little further than that, you've got some of the folks on the city council, and I think it's a big mistake, already saying if in fact the Charter Commission passes, okay, if the Charter Commission is a partisan type of government, I'm not supporting that. That is not their job yet. It's too early. Let the Charter Commission do what they have to do, and then they'll make the final determination to put on the ballot or not. That's their job, and that's our job. But not prior. And that's the, you all heard already, from some of the folks in the city council. Well, if they pass, I'm not going to support the partisan. Fine, keep it to yourself. I'll respect you more. And there's other things that I'm not going to support that. Well, I think it's too premature. Let us do our job. And I think this committee here, we're all professionals. We're all getting in mind to do a great job for the city. They're doing all the right things. And then, of course, we understand going forward the city council, as Joel indicated, that they'll make the determination if they want to put on the ballot or not. I think they should if I was on the council, because they came with a recommendation from the Charter Commission. Let the city, just like Julie said, she's getting members on Ward 1 and say, I'd like to see this change. Okay? So we understand that. So if that's how they feel, that's fine. I'm here to work 24 hours a day, whatever's going to be done to move forward. But I would ask the council, don't make no remarks at this stage of the game if you're going to support a particular recommendation from the Charter Commission or not. It's too early. Let us do our work. That's all.
So, just to bring things back around, Julie, I completely understand. And again, like I said originally, I apologize to this commission. That's my fault, because I was giving that council the benefit of the doubt. And clearly they are not up to that task. So what I think is best for everyone is that we do our job, our mandate in the charter. We go through the charter, we take up the issues that we see fit, we vote, we make our recommendations. If the council wants to send us communications in writing, we have a communications and public comment section. They can come up and they can comment publicly like everybody else. The administration is going to make department heads available when we go through sections of the charter that will help us get information that we need so we can make better recommendations. But it's up to us to make that. So I thought it would be better to have a collaborative process. I was wrong, but I disagree with Bruce. I'm not in favor of kowtowing to this council. I'm not sure what's going on with them, but I don't want any part of that reality TV show that takes place every other Tuesday. So we can do our job. We can do a good job, and then we can pass our recommendations when we're done, and they can do what they want. And
The city council, Mr. Chairman, Val Perry was on the last Charter Commission, so was I. Not one city council ever said what they came here, attended the meetings. Biden attended the meetings all the time. Nothing was ever said by city council. They appreciate everything that the Charter Commission did. You were there. Not one city council ever interfered with the commission. They would come in, thank you for your job, and then they make the decision at the end, and that's the way this should be. Not one, the city council. And we already had the mayor from a government passed.
next item.
New business, approval of minutes. April 19th, 2023, April 26th, 2023, May 10th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, do you want individual motions or collective?
We can group them.
Group them?
I'm sorry, you want to bundle, is that?
Yeah, we can bundle them.
I'll second that motion, bundling the meetings, okay.
Motion by Mr. Vinatero, second by Mr. Ferrier. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. I also, by the way, now that we're on a more positive note, would like to introduce our new member, Mr. Lewis. Our meetings are not usually this contentious, but
You didn't listen to the first part of the meeting.
I don't know if you want to say a few words to introduce yourself.
Honestly, I'm just happy to be here and to contribute. So thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the process.
And we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So we can move on to our next item.
Question for city solicitor regarding charter commission procedure. by Mr. Rogers.
Just, I want to make a note that this was put on. One thing was added that I didn't ask to be put on the agenda. It was question for city solicitor. It was just questions regarding council commission procedure. So I wanted to be noted, and I have that in my email if anybody wants to see it, that I didn't, this was not for the city solicitor in particular. I want to, what Julie alluded to, I agree on. I think this commission needs to establish procedure going forward on how we are going to present ourselves to the city council. I don't think, in all due respect, that the chairman representing this commission was given any marching orders, nor did we know, or did I, I'll speak for myself, I didn't know that he was going before the city council. When somebody goes before the city council who's on the charter commission, whether they be the chair or a member, represent that commission. I could have gone and I could have put myself on public comment and gotten up and spoken about commission issues. And it's the same situation. The chairman represents, when the chairman's there, the chairman represents the charter commission. We did not, in particular, ask the chairman of the commission to go forward and to discuss with the council what we may or may not be doing. And the particular issue of, which I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to bring it up again, the particular issue of the up or down vote on the resolution was tabled. So it should have never, ever been mentioned, no matter who brought it up. If the council had heard about it and said, oh, here, you're going to do this, it should have been, we didn't vote on that. So I think we need to establish procedure on how we're going to present the information at this point of what we are collaborating on, what we're not collaborating on, what we're commenting on, and when and if anybody goes before the city council to discuss the issues that are before this commission. So I would like to establish that procedures tonight. Does the city, now I'll ask the city solicitor, do you have any objection or anything that you think is illegal about this charter commission setting procedure for itself on how we present?
No, I don't have any issue with having, basically passing bylaws. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
I don't have any objection to creating bylaws. We couldn't do it tonight. We would need to actually post as much. And best practice is to have a draft of the bylaws attached to the agenda item so that the public kind of has wherewithal of what may be voted on. You don't have to do it that way as long as it does state that bylaws will be voted on. But no, I mean, barring the Open Meetings Act requirement that there's advance notice that that's something that can occur, I don't have any objection to doing it that way.
Thank you. And this next comment is Bruce Rogers' opinion as one commission member. Whether you were elected or appointed, I think we're all equal. We voted to make Mark Furtado the chairperson, without question. He got the majority of the votes and he is the chairperson. But I take issue to the comments that some of us were elected, I got higher percentages than other people. If you want to go there, I got 11,000 votes citywide. Not important to me because we're all equal. Appointed or elected, we are all equal. And I want to make that clear, my opinion, my feeling, what Commissioner Tavares says, who's appointed, is just as important to me of what Commissioner Venatiro says. And he was elected. So I want that, just from me, I want that to be made clear that with me, you carry as much weight, whether you're elected or appointed. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, do you want a motion to place on the docket, or however the solicitor wants me to word it, to sit down and have this commission create bylaws on procedure?
It's a discussion item, so we can't take a vote on it.
Mr. Solicitor, can we?
The question is just to place it on the following agenda.
Yes.
I don't have an objection to scheduling something, but we can't discuss the merits of it in one way or the other. You can schedule an agenda item though.
So moved. I move that.
I'll second that, especially for discussion.
Discuss on a motion, Mr. Chairman. What do we need to set a bylaw?
We can't, so here's the trick. We can have a motion on scheduling it and we can discuss the scheduling of it, but we cannot discuss the merits of it. The merits of it can only be discussed, there's two ways, but really the merits of it can only be discussed once it's placed on an agenda. Technically, you could have a motion right now, and if there was unanimous consent to add something for discussion purposes only, you can do that. The Attorney General very strongly does not like when people do that. And it's very clear in their Open Meetings Act opinions. So my recommendation is that if there is a discussion, it's limited to whether or not it should be placed on an agenda, full stop, and which agenda, full stop. Those are scheduling discussions, not merits discussions.
Chairman, I believe that we don't need no bylaws. I think what we believe is move forward. We served on the Charter Commission last time. You're the chairperson. We can place anything on the ballot. I think our job,
Respectfully, this is discussion.
Huh?
Point of clarification, this is discussion.
We need
Chairman,
to focus on whether or not it is to place it on a following agenda. Just whether or not to place it on a following agenda.
And there was a motion and a second to do that. So,
what I'm saying, you don't need it.
Mr. Chairman, can you please?
Through the chair, before. Can't any member put something on the agenda unilaterally? So do we, I mean, so isn't this, wouldn't that make this a moot issue that if Commissioner Rogers wants to put something on the next agenda, he can do so, right?
Denied anyone.
Right, correct. And
An item on the agenda.
so do we need a vote?
You don't need one, no.
Okay.
But because of what it is, should we have one? Because it's procedural. Because and the only reason why I'm saying this, Mark, is not that you've ever said no to an agenda item, because I personally never asked you, but I've always seen other people put on. My reasoning for this is because of what happened when you had to deal with the city council and the feedback. And so this is why I'm presenting it like this.
So there is a motion, I believe. So if we want to call the roll.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Farrier,
No, nay.
Mr. Lewis,
Nay.
Ms. Perry votes nay. Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
Ms. Silva,
Aye.
Mr. Sulo,
Nay.
Mr. Tabaris, Mr. Vinatiero,
Nay.
Chairman Furtado,
Nay.
motion fails.
Thank you.
You done with the discussion?
I am done with the discussion for procedure.
Next item?
Vote on changes from May 10th meeting, Article 1 and Article 2.
So I just want to make sure, does everyone have a copy of the agenda that has the actual language with the changes in it?
Yes, but it's in black and white for many people. So the blue is lost.
Okay. Eventually, we will get this down as a,
Point of order. Are we going to vote individually?
that's a question I have for the solicitor.
You can, it would be my recommendation that you vote clause by clause. If there's a dispute as to language within a clause, then we should have a vote as to that smaller language. I have the color-coded version. I'm happy to read out what the changes are, if that's helpful.
If you would like to do that, because I color coded the changes, so I am not an attorney, as often points out.
So the first is just in Article 1, Section 1-1, the proposal it's described above to change the word town. So what you may not be able to see in your language is that the word city is provided. That's new language in City of East Providence. Where not is struck, the word now is added. Otherwise, everything you see in your black and white version is the same. So it's just the new word is city and now in the top line.
Motion to accept?
Motion,
Oh.
second.
What about Providence Plantations? So we,
Oh, and Providence Plantations is struck as well, correct?
So is there a motion to accept the changes on 1-1?
Yes.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is Article 2, City Council. Again, as stated within the materials presented, the color coding, the word shall is introduced in the first line. So it says council members shall be qualified voters. Everything else, including that struck brackets around the word A, is the same. So it's just the word shall that I wanted to point out.
Motion to accept 2-2?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Section 2-4, the additional language, the new language is the entirety of the second sentence beginning, the president shall also set the agenda for meetings of the council with the assistance of the city clerk and law department.
So move.
There's a motion to accept.
Mr. Solicitor?
Yes.
Um,
Do we mind if we get a second just so we can have the discussion?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Thank you.
on this, you also, there's also a put on hold until city clerk issue is resolved. What,
So what I,
when, opposed to, I mean, in regards to what we're voting on, what are you asking us to put on hold?
my understanding is that we're accepting the language as presented. We're not determining what language will be sent to the council just yet. This language, I believe, may end up intertwining with other issues that I think this commission intends to confront. So I don't imagine that anything will be forwarded unless and until that other section is also dealt with. So we may make subsequent changes, but for tonight's purposes, a vote on this language sets the record on how this will be presented unless it's changed again later.
Okay. Thank you.
That was a second for discussion.
Discussion, yeah. I'll make a motion to accept 2-4.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Section 2-6, it is the second line from the bottom. You will all see that the language city clerk is struck. The newly introduced language is canvassing clerk immediately next to it. So the final clause of that section reads, the canvassing clerk shall call a special election for the purpose of filling such vacancy within 30 days after the vacancy occurs.
So moved.
Second.
My only question I wanted to ask is the members. We have canvassing clerk. Did we want to consider canvassing authority to have the board formally meet? Or are we fine having just the canvassing clerk call the special election?
I think what you're looking at is an administrative function. There's also some state law regarding how these elections are called for. So prior to, certainly prior to placement on a ballot, if something like this were to move far along, we would double and triple check to make sure that we weren't making a recommendation that went up against the state law on elections. But for in terms of a policy position, the legal issue that jumps to mind is to keep something that is administrative, such as the city clerk, and maintaining it to be administrative to the canvassing clerk as opposed to moving it to a board.
There was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next section is section 2-7. This has been identified as a self-conflicting provision within the charter relative to section 11-14. If I'm reading this correctly, I understand it to just mean that the first meeting of the newly elected council shall be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in January following a city general election. So that remains. And then we are striking section 11-14. Some of you may see it on your next page. So that entire section is struck. All elected and appointed officers for a definite term shall enter upon their term. So all of that is struck. And we just remove that catch-all, which was creating sort of a conflict with how the practice was occurring and how it was set forth in section 2 of the charter.
And I'd just like to also point out that I'm not arguing on the substance, because I know we had gone back and forth on and whether the actual language of the first meeting of the council. But when we go to the mayor section, that wording is going to repeat as well. It's going to be the exact same thing. So as long as the members are okay with that date in January not changing, my personal advice is to strike 11-14. Just because that's the easiest way to do it, unless members want to go back to the December inauguration.
Mr. Chairman, isn't that what this is stating, though? It's stating that we would correct it. We're correcting the charter by saying January, but we're voting to strike
Yes.
section 11-14. So I would make a motion to approve 2-7 with the striking of 11-14.
Okay, there's a motion. There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Section 2-8 is a change in phrasing. So the blue lettering just reads a quorum of open paren 3 close paren members of the city council shall be necessary. And it goes on as already presented. So you're striking the language that says a whole number of members and replacing it with quorum of 3.
Through the chair, Mr. Solicitor.
Mhm.
So this also, because something has been brought up already before this committee, if the number of council members change, we can amend this and fix this later.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
If the mover and second, if we could actually just add the word 3 spelt out before we put the number 3 in, so it would read a quorum of 3, open paren, number 3, close paren.
Agreed.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, apologies for interrupting. It is a pet peeve of mine.
Need it formally amended as a motion?
The mover and second, I believe, agreed to adding the word 3. It doesn't substantively change anything at all.
In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The final bit of language I have in front of me is section 2-9. This is identified as conflicting with section 3-12. This establishes that administrative departments and the distribution of work. So we're striking section 2-9, subsection 2, establish administrative departments and distribute the work of divisions. I believe that this is a holdover from the change in form of government from council manager, 2 strong mayor, and the mayor now manages this portion as it's identified throughout the remainder of the charter, but this one clause is not in line with that.
I do actually have, I know I'm the one that edited the language, but I do have one change to propose, which is that it's striking the entire sentence, but I would propose leaving in establish administrative departments and just striking distribute the work of divisions. Establishing administrative departments is a function of the council, but distributing the work of the divisions within the departments is an inherently executive function, and that still conflicts with the same wording that's in the section under the Article 3. So that I think either Mike or I should have caught that, but regardless, administrative departments is a legislative function, but distributing is executive. So I would ask if someone would make a motion to amend that.
So move. Motion to amend 2.9 to read establish administrative departments, period, and then strike and distribute the work of divisions.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. So the next item
Discussion, Article 2, City Council.
So this is just continuing from where we left off last week, or last month, sorry. And the last section that we did was 2-10. And correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't propose any changes to section 2-10, which is council not to interfere in the appointments or removal by the mayor, council to act through the mayor in dealing with subordinates. In which case now we can start.
Did we resolve the question regarding inquiry? I know there was a question regarding inquiry, wasn't there? And I just don't recall. I'm sorry. Was that resolved?
We did have a conversation about inquiry, and I know Mike had explained it, and that it was marrying the language between the two sections and speaking about how that led to the use of the subpoena power. But obviously, Mr. Conley can speak to that better than I can about the power of inquiry for the city council.
In terms of its design from the previous charter commission, or in terms of,
If you can go into both the intent from the previous charter commission and also if that differs from how the current law department has interpreted it.
I think really the context in which it evolved was there were investigations that were occurring at the same time that the Charter Commission was ongoing. The goal was that no one party, be it the mayor or the council, have the ability to investigate the other without the other being able to respond. But there was a strong desire to limit it to cause, so that there would be a requirement that there be a public statement of cause that was the source of the ability to issue the subpoena. The goal was to take away the use of the investigative powers for political purposes and to focus it in a way that was really driven by the interest of the people, the interest of the city's business being done. The way it's currently structured, I believe it roughly accomplishes that. Solicitor Marcello and I have had spirited policy debates on this section. But I think in terms of how it functions legally, we're both on the same page.
A point of clarification. 296 allows the council to inquire into the conduct of any office, department, or agency of the city, make an investigation to the municipal affairs, and for such, may issue subpoenas, witnesses, and require the production of records with just a simple majority. But then in 10, we say neither the council nor any of its members shall direct or request. Wouldn't that be to, I don't want to put words that aren't there, but wouldn't that investigation be leading up to the removal of someone from office? In 6?
It very well could be, yes.
And then how can we forbid them from doing that?
Forbid them from removing somebody?
It says of any, neither the council nor any of its members shall direct or request the appointment of any person to, or his or her removal from office by the mayor.
So the council could perform an investigation, which brings evidence to light, but the council could not perform the termination itself. So the evidence that the council brings to light could then be used by the mayor or some department director to perform the termination thereafter. I do not read those to be in conflict with them. I read the first to be subsection 6, so there's 296, to be a specific form of inquiry, and section 2-10 to be the general sort of legislative branch interfering with the day-to-day operations of the administrative branch.
Okay, so there's no conflict there.
I do not read that to be in conflict.
Okay, thank you.
For whatever it is worth, in practice, there is a very normal transaction where something will be brought to a council person's attention, and it's the council person simply knows the right person to call. I think there's a difference between the council person in the way that if I was pushed to prosecute a claimed charge of this, there's a difference between a council person saying, call Dylan Conley, he's the assistant solicitor, I know he's the one working on this project, and the council person telling the DPW director, you absolutely have to put a sign up in front of that person's house by the end of the day. I think those are qualitatively different, and I believe that any prosecution would recognize that, if that helps kind of clear that up at all.
Point of clarification on this, on the same section, the 2.9 of powers, number 6. So you mentioned just cause, if there was an active just cause, but it's not written here. Should it be written here? That, or can 3 members, if 3 members decide that they didn't like the color tie they were wearing, could they, and of course I'm being, a little facetious when I say that, but you understand.
It's a perfect example.
Without saying, just cause, then are we
I think
lacking something by not putting that there?
in place of just cause, and I appreciate you pointing that out because I rested on my laurels a little bit. That's a phrase I go to too often. It's legitimate public purpose. So instead of saying just cause, it says legitimate public purpose. Those two clauses serve the same idea, that there needs to be a statement which justifies the subpoena. Just cause is like a termination phenomenon. It's a labor phenomenon. Legitimate public purpose is a governing phenomenon. They kind of play very similar roles. Legitimate public purpose is derivative from con law on strict scrutiny.
Any other inquiries on the power of inquiry?
Am I missing it though? It's not, it doesn't say that here.
Legitimate public purpose?
Yeah,
It's in the
Where am I?
last sentence of 6.
Top of the following page.
Oh.
that was my problem. Thank you.
And I can attest from personal experience that this was an issue that arose between the executive and the legislative from the last council, and there was need for clarification from the law department on what that meant. So these are these answers came were kind of established. I think it was in the first year this popped up as an issue. So if to me, I would advise that the language stays the same just because I think it's settled. And there's mechanisms in there, punitive mechanisms for if the procedure is not followed, but obviously that's at the discretion of the commission. Which case we can move to 2-11. So that's canvassing authority. I think that's pretty clear. I don't think there's much to change on that. Bipartisan canvassing authority. Unless there's any objection, we can move on to city clerk.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
mean, you're talking about 2-11 canvassing?
Yes.
Was any suggested to insert any new language, or I think it's okay?
Yeah.
are we skipping 2-10?
2-10 was what we originally started with. Is there anything you want to bring up in 2-10?
I thought that was 2-9 because that was what we were talking about.
They go together. So we were starting with 2-10 and then we ended up going back to 2-9 for inquiry.
So we're just looking to leave it the way it's written. Correct?
Unless you have anything else.
No,
Okay.
that's fine. Thank you.
So the next section is 2-12, which is city clerk. Now, we had spoken about this before, and we had roughly come, I think, to a consensus whether or not there was differing proposals on how to implement it. But I think most of us were in favor of some sort of mayoral appointee, whether it was a direct hire or some sort of department head, or the council having their own separate clerk. But I think the major consensus that we reached was that it would be an official that was administrative in nature. And is there anyone want to start with a discussion on the item?
Well, I think we did say that the city clerk is a department head, and all the department heads do come under the mayor. And, the city clerk has a lot of responsibilities, and I know in the past, city clerk had the council in the office, in and out of the office. Not that the mayor's office wouldn't be in and out, but it was at times, you've got five different people giving you different directions and all. And of course, then you've got to deal with the mayor too. So I really think if we're going to have, the mayor is going to be in charge of all the department heads, then the city clerk should be included in that. And the council should have their own separate secretarial person who can do the agenda. I think the city clerk would still have to do all of the minutes and everything of the council meetings because that's what's required. Unless we decide to do something different with that too.
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong. What you're proposing in regards to the council is someone more akin to a staffer or a secretary who would essentially gather the requests that they have, prepare the agendas and everything. The city clerk would stay as the department head and would sit there during the meetings and take the minutes, but any of the council functions, that council clerk would serve.
Right. I believe, Mr. Solicitor, if I may, the city clerk. Now, if the council had its own separate secretary, would the city clerk still have to be the person to do the council meetings? I always believed that was the city clerk's responsibility.
I actually believe so. There are certain provisions at state law which require that must be performed by the city clerk. So even if there was I'm using the word clerk of the council, the position that you're describing, there will be certain things that the city clerk would still have to do on behalf of the council because there's no way around that. But you'd basically be moving it from 100% of the duties being done for the council to 5% of the duties being done for the council from the same position. And then someone else would be picking up that other 95%.
This person could do the agenda and, all of that, and then forward it to the city clerk to put it all together.
Chairman, I thought we spent a lot of time the last time, and I thought we pretty much were on the same train as that the city clerk, due to the fact that responsibilities and the job duties that she has, that position should be appointed by the mayor. And then we also had a discussion that there's then the council, and I understand what you say, as far as meeting state law. And then the council, as a matter of fact, we have talked to you to talk to the council, how would they want to handle it? Because I think, and I know early on I said, well, they've got to wait, but I know pretty much they're on board of saying that position should be appointed. When I'm saying on board, they're not telling me, anyway, but I'm listening. Appointed by the mayor. And the reason is because that should be a department head. We spent almost an hour here having that discussion. And the city council could have maybe but it's up to them though, a part-time someone who would do the agenda, who would work for the city council. I thought we were pretty much all on the same train at that time.
Mr. Chairman?
I don't think we have changed the.
Mr. Chairman, last meeting, we discussed with the city solicitor, we asked for some, just for some clarification, some research, and it was supposed to get back to us on what other cities are doing, like what other positions, what options there are. I never received anything. I was hoping that you had received something so you could share with us because that would help us just to decide. I mean, we're in agreement. We know that there needs to be a department head and the mayor should be in charge of the department head. We understand state law. I think all of us collectively have said that we understand that this position especially needs to follow state law. Our question to the city solicitor, and I apologize, it was Mike, so I don't even know if you, last meeting, we questioned if there was any research on what other cities did. I believe even Commissioner.
I can speak to it.
Okay, because that will help us in the language. At least I feel it will help us in language.
So just moving through the places that I know the best. In Westerly, it's a town manager form of government, so it's not really comparable, but both the manager and the clerk are directly responsive to the council. The clerk still reports to the town manager, but often works directly for the council. But that's a different form of government. In Providence, that is a mayoral form of government, but is a very powerful council relative to the council that we have in our charter. The clerk's department functions largely as responsive to the council. The council does a lot more work. There's 15 of them. They have a series of subcommittees, so it's a very large staff. So again, I don't know that that's a great one-to-one comparison. In the town of Johnston, the clerk's office, the appointment functions from the mayor. The clerk is responsive to the council, but the day-to-day operations really flow through the mayor. In Johnston, I think they're blessed with an exceptional clerk. He's been there for a very, very, very long time. So it's a bit difficult for me to point out what that would be like if the relationship wasn't copacetic, because he's been working pretty seamlessly for both council and mayor for, 20 years now almost. So it's a little bit different in that respect. In Pawtucket, they have a couple clerks that the way they function, from my perspective, is it's almost a neutral body that floats between the two. They almost operate the way some people would conceive of as a court. They're very strict about exactly how operations occur, and they're much more beholden to regulations than they are directly responsive to either the council or the mayor. It's a lot of these positions, you structure them in such a way underneath your charter, you can structure them in such a way underneath your ordinances. There is a good chunk of it that will be the just election cycle after election cycle. The relationship with the personalities will control how it practices on a day-to-day. And then there's the culture of the community, which has a large impact on it. I think what we're experiencing in East Providence is that it's a change in our form of government. So the culture is changing. And I don't know that we've found a footing just yet. From a professional standpoint, for me, working in front of councils or with mayors or trying to get a hold of mayors, knowing which person is responsive to which is a huge value. And clarity that this is the person that, responds to the council and this is the person that responds to the mayor just makes things a lot easier and much more straightforward.
Chairman, wouldn't it be possible to have an assistant clerk in the clerk's department whose sole purpose is to deal with the council? And that way the clerk can still maintain their position appointed by the mayor. But one of the employees in that department, sole assignment would be to work with the council.
So my only issue with that is that there's already a deputy clerk. And I don't remember exactly what the breakdown is. I know it's a de facto breakdown, not a actually in writing thing, but it's more the deputy clerk does more of the executive functionings within the office. And I think the city clerk takes on the council duties plus some other things. I would be hesitant to group someone whose sole duties are just to the council and put them in an administrative department, just because you then run into the same problem that we've run into before, where you have someone who's working within that executive department and has reports to the legislative branch. And I know we had brought it up previously about if it's really going to be like part-time duties, they could help out in the clerk's department. But once you kind of blur that line, it can get a little bit messy. And we've seen that in action. That's my only hesitation with that.
Also, Mr. Chair, isn't the city, the deputy clerk, a union position?
Yep.
So I think we might be crossing lines there.
I will actually be introducing an ordinance at the next council meeting to correct this exact error as to the municipal court clerk. The city lost a lawsuit on an unfair labor practice back in 2001. The city's been conforming to the decision in the unfair labor practice for 22 years, but the ordinance never caught up. So we're going to fix it. But that's exactly what it was, is that there was a position that was created, but it was created in such a way that it fell subject to bargaining unit work. So even though it was an appointed position, the state labor department held that it was a union position. Therefore, the state labor department actually ended up taking the appointment away from the council. So if there is a desire to have someone that is solely responsible to the council, unfortunately, you need them on an island. You need them to be the appointed person. This is their duty, and they're not a portion of some other department out of fear that someone could basically appeal an appointment and say, actually, that's union work. I had no idea that was going to happen either. And then I stumbled across the court decision just the other day. So I was with you until like Thursday afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, I also want to like really go back to what this commission we all agreed upon too, is the position of city clerk is a very important position. And right now, for it to be an appointed position at the will of the council, I have an issue with that. I think that is half the problem, because you have a clerk that doesn't know if 3 members are going to decide that they aren't doing their job. I think the consistency, we need to come up with something, and I don't know if I right today have the answer to it, but we have to come up with something that city clerk should not be at a willed position. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, and I agree that the council has every right to make an appointment and have a sole clerk that does what they need to do, because there's a lot of stuff that logistically that needs to be done. But you have a position of a city clerk that has state laws behind it with responsibilities, that is the keeper of basically all our records, and it's an at-will position. That just doesn't make sense to me. And I think it's our job to try to clarify that, because that's a little, that's a mistake, I think, that we changed our form of government. I think that would be a mistake if we didn't fix that, because that's so important. And for future mayors and future city council people, and just being a resident, I think that's too important of a position to just have it at a will position.
I think that, we need to realize that historically, it's that city clerk's position has been a spoils position. Now we're talking about making it more accountable to an executive authority of the mayor. So you're going to have to blend that. And I think, to repeat myself from a couple of meetings ago, the idea of having the city clerk answerable to the mayor is palatable, but also having someone to serve as the I'll use the word secretary of the council, to do the day-to-day administrative work for them. It all comes down to the details. How do you determine which responsibilities and when and where does the city clerk function, and when and where does the, for lack of a better term, secretary of the council function? And that's something I would defer to Mr. Conley to come up with a way to be Solomon-like.
I was going to say, seeing as I think we're pretty much in agreement, and unless there are any objections to it, if I would ask the solicitor if we could get some sort of language drafted together to put that in as a, and this is not for a vote right now. This would be at the next meeting, we would put this for a vote. To have the city clerk as a mayoral appointee, as a department head, and have the city council have a clerk of the council that would do the day-to-day functions that the council deems fit. And we can work on the language and everything and bring that back in time for the next meeting. Because I'm sure that one of the other municipalities, we can copy and paste and get exactly what we're looking for.
Jim, it was never a problem with the city clerk, because I think we're talking about because of the strong mayor. You had the city manager, former government at one time, but what you had in the city clerk, Mrs. Perry, of course, worked there, I don't know, 18, 15, 20 years. But we had that loyalty to the council, and to whoever was in charge. The CEO, that was the city manager. We're talking about this, you know why? Because we had a bad experience. Let's be honest. We had a bad experience this past couple of years. Because the person who was appointed, the loyalty was to the council. I don't have to do what you're telling me, Mr. Mayor. Or I don't have to tell you, I don't have to do what you're telling me, city manager, because I work for the council. So even the council recognizes how important it is, aside from the responsibility that the job brings. There's no question about it. But we never had that problem, but now we do. So I think we're talking about fixing the problem. It's because it's broken. And we need to be creative. I heard our council a lot and clear. We need to be creative, okay? And being creative is that position should be appointed by the mayor as a department head. Question is, we need some kind of a language, massage the situation. That's when you come in, counselor, okay? Talk to the city council. Maybe they want their own person to do some of the work, like Commissioner Vinatieri was saying. That they'll have one, I don't know, part-time basis, less hours, someone right from that department. Is that the deputy clerk who's going to do the job? But I think we should focus is very, very important in that position now to prevent from what happened a couple of years ago. We all know that. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about names, but it was a major problem. You were here, Mark. And sometimes we need to bring it on. The reason why we're fixing that problem, because it's broken. We're trying to work. So we need to be creative is with the language. And I know that we spent some time here one time, not the last meeting because I was in here. It was the appointment by the mayor. At least if I'm appointed by the mayor, that person's going to have the responsibility, or she's going to be out the door to do the job exactly the way it's supposed to be done, as required by the city. But all the records, I don't know exactly what she does, but obviously there's a lot of responsibility with the records and everything else. Appointed by the council, well, I don't know, where's the loyalty? The city council. We're not saying that the city council should not have that. We're saying is that position should be appointed because of the problem that we had in the past by the mayor, okay? And somehow be creative to meet what the law says in the state of Rhode Island, with someone who will provide the service to the council. And I know that the council, as long as the council has someone who provides the service to the council, that is scheduling the meetings, do whatever is necessary, whatever required. I don't think it's a big thing. I think first we should focus is the city clerk appointed by the mayor, and who's going to provide the service to the council? Is that a clerk hired by the city? Is it someone in the office? Is that the city clerk? As long as the council gets what they want with their own clerk, I don't think it should be a problem. We talked about that you should talk to the council. And at one time we talked about it, and I want to bring this because it's the appropriate time. It's almost the agenda. We send a letter to the council Okay, and this is why it was important to send a letter to the council to come with their recommendations. So we could discuss, and obviously, if they have a problem, vote in favor of the council. And also the mayor, some of the changes that are necessary from the administration so they can function better. Have they come up with some of the concerns that they have, Mr. Chairman?
We've received a few.
Well, what is it for you? I don't have any. You know, I mean, this is what we are. Well, we're going here is, and hey, I used to be involved in changing bylaws and local unions, provide service and constitutions and all that stuff. We're going here changing. What I come here is, the more you fool around with language, the worse it is. We should come here and focus is, change the things that are important. And first, the recommendations, to be honest with you, should be from the administration, from the city council. That should be a priority from them coming to you or to this body and say, this is what we'd like to change. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the only way to go. Now, we're going to go through the charter like, yeah, well, we don't need to change that, but we move forward. I'm not so sure we're going in the right direction. Change what's necessary to change, because the more you fool around with language, the worse it gets. So I think it's important. It's important, correct? So I think it's important again, and you did, to your credit, you send a letter to the council. You send a letter to the administration. I still haven't seen any concerns that they have.
Mr. Chairman.
That's why this commission was formed.
Mr. Chairman, don't we have the proposed charter changes from from at least the law department that I believe.
That was from the last.
Right. Well, we have section, 212 of the city clerk. Should we at least discuss those changes?
That was. It was
have any.
making a mayor appointment, correct? I don't have it in front of me.
Well, it says the administration believes that the city clerk position should be a mayoral appointee. And then it says 2-1, transmit all ordinances and resolutions approved by the city council within 5 days of their passage by the body to the mayor. And 2J, codify all ordinances and maintain a record of all city council resolutions for publication. So I think we need to discuss those.
Yeah,
He recommended INJ.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to get to the portion of the transmittal of the ordinances when we got to 216.
216. It says 212.
Do I understand that that was presented by Mike at the previous meeting, or do you want me to, or do I need to lay out kind of
Well-
why that became important?
Well, it was presented by Mike,
Okay.
but he didn't go into detail about it because we didn't get that far. So he gave us the paper saying that it was something to like alert us to that we should look at, but he didn't explain why.
Oh, it's functions. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Of the city clerk.
exactly.
The veto has a time period attached to it, but when does the clock start? And so there was a lack of definition on when the clock started, and that created an issue for us a couple times. There was a severe lack of accurate record keeping for an extended period of time. So the question about whether or not things were passed over a veto, or whether or not the mayor had the opportunity to veto something, was a legitimate legal question, because we didn't know when the clock started. Votes would occur from the council. The administration would never actually receive the ordinance as voted on by the council. So that was a problem. And so the language that you see in front of you corrects for that time calculation. The identical issue actually comes up in the budget. This is another area where Mike and I have had spirited debates. But basically, what would happen in, there's a lot of really severe time periods in the budgetary process. And when we switched to mayoral form of government and the mayor received the veto, which is a relatively common practice, it wasn't contemplated how that would have an impact on budgetary timelines. So we'll need to address that at some point as well. And I do know the finance director is working on that.
And Malcolm will be here to kind of explain the budget process and everything. So anyone can ask him questions on that to go in more detail.
Through the chair. If I can, this is directed to the city solicitor. Where, I may be missing something, where in section 212 or where anywhere does it say that the city clerk will be responsible for the city council's agendas and so forth? Are you saying that's in state law?
Oh, it's the keeping of the minutes that's in state law.
State law. That's the only thing that's in state law
No, there's a whole package. I can send
that
it
had to
out.
do with the city council?
It's on the city clerk.
Yeah, but how the city clerk responds to the city council, or how,
That's relatively limited.
that's it, just here.
That's relatively limited.
Okay, so with that being said, and I think from what I hear, I think we're almost all in agreement, if not all of us. Tell me if it would be appropriate to either do it by addition to or a change that we're recommending to the city council and the city clerk to change the council shall appoint an officer, blah, 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 and change that to the mayor shall at this time, and then we can hash out the position, if it should go in the charter or not, a position where the city clerk or a deputy clerk, whatever you want to call it, deals with the city council's issues. Does that make sense at this point?
It does.
Now, let me ask you another question, if I might. If the council accepts these items, that the city clerk is now an appointee of the mayor, and this is for all of them, because I worked under a different form of government, obviously. The planning boards, not boards, the recreation director, that the mayor appoints all these positions. Can the mayor, any mayor, okay, I'm not talking about our mayor, because by the way, we're doing legislation for good councils and bad councils, for good mayors and bad mayors, and we cannot distinguish. So, Mr. Farrier, I agree with you. We had a bad experience. We may have all good ones from this point on, or we may have,
Good ones on it.
right, we always did. And one of them sitting right here, or we may have all bad ones. You can't make legislation for both of those. Are there provisions if a mayor comes in, wants to put his next door neighbor in as the city clerk or any position? Are there provisions for those people to fight it and to not be removed? Or are there specifications for what the mayor has to go by for appointment?
No. So at the department head appointment position,
Yeah.
that's pure at will.
Yeah.
The mayor can remove someone for nothing at all, for
No.
wearing a purple tie.
It doesn't have to say any clause, doesn't have to mention why.
That's correct. That is a change that occurred during the last charter commission as a result of a federal lawsuit was brought to our attention. So the pendulum swung in the other direction.
So, and I'm not trying to, discuss or suggest, not discuss, we can discuss anything we want. Not trying to suggest that it shouldn't be a mayor's appointment. But I want to let everybody know that that's my feeling on it. We hope we elect mayors who are responsible and who don't do anything like that. But the city clerk's position is way too important for the mayor or the head of the city government to not be the person to appoint. So I think if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, and to the solicitor, that we now either put it to a vote if that's what you think we should do, or suggest that we change that word, the council, in 2-12, number 1, to say the mayor.
Well, I'd like to see the solicitor put some language together first to make sure we have all our ducks in a row, because this is something that's important. And that way he can take the time and look at what other cities and towns have done. Because I'm speaking from personal experience that usually when it comes to this stuff, you are never going to invent anything. You're just copying and pasting stuff from other municipalities and tweaking it a little bit. So I doubt we're the first municipality to think of this, and we're certainly not going to be the last. So I'm sure somebody has thought of this before. So
So through the chair, shouldn't this be the point, though, that we ask the city solicitor to please present us with a description? Okay.
and then he can bring can bring that back as drafted language with the red and blue. Hopefully it will actually be color printed that time. And then we can go through it and we can decide either we don't like any of it or we want to amend certain lines. And it's, to me, it's an easier way to vote than voting by concept, because sometimes after everything's said and done, you'll see a finished product and say, I don't remember voting on that.
So is it fair for us to table section 212, city clerk, and discuss it next month when we have those recommendations from the city solicitor's office?
Well, we're not,
I mean,
If I can,
Mr. Chair.
I can
We're going
basically,
through we're going article by article, section by, and now we just came across. It is appropriate right now to vote one way or the other if the city clerk is going to be appointed by the mayor. Now, then we need to work out, which that's why we have an attorney here, work out the language. Who's going to provide the service to the city council?
Mr. Chairman,
Who's going to provide I still get the floor, I'm sorry. So who's going to provide the service to the city council? But I think it's appropriate to take that motion now.
well, we're just going to let.
well, I
Up or
actually
down?
had, Mr. Chairman, I had the floor 2 seconds ago. I didn't realize that I lost the floor. I would like an answer. Is it beneficial for us to discuss this and, for lack of better terminology, beat a dead horse if we're not, or if we're waiting for information from the city solicitor's office? Is it safe to say that we should be tabling it to our next month's meeting and discussing it so we can vote right down line by line item?
I can actually, I think I can help with, I'm very confident that what my language is going to come back is going to be changing that word council to mayor in that first section. Then adding a section that will say, the city council shall appoint a clerk of the council, and the city council shall define the scope of the clerk of the council's work. And that's it. Because I don't like that much in a charter, like only that. And then the council can then council by council decide exactly what they want that clerk to be doing, and they can fund the position accordingly.
Through the chair. Could I also make a suggestion that you include the changes in section 2, include 2I and 2J? Thank you.
Again, through the chair. Mr. Solicitor, where does it come up, or it's not appropriate, or it shouldn't be in here? Where are the duties of, and maybe it's because it's a division or a section, where are the duties of the deputy clerk and other things like that? Is that as part of the clerk's job or state?
No, the only time that any other member of the staff would have the obligations of the clerk are basically controlled by state law is when the deputy clerk is serving within the role of the city clerk. Other than that, I'm going to say that 90 to 95% of their job duties and scope is a HR phenomenon, which would be controlled by the administration. There may be a few things here or there throughout the code of ordinances that says, there shall be a clerk in charge of land records. There shall be a clerk in charge of the municipal court. That's something we're going to look at next week.
Okay, so it's kind of a union thing too.
It's very much a union thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to clarify that deputy city clerk position, I don't know if it's still the same as when I was here, but the deputy city clerk was the office manager. So she took care of everything, outside of the office. And the city clerk, I really did all the council work. The only time I'd ever go out there if there was a problem, but I have to go out there or if a customer wanted to talk with me directly. But she would take care of the payroll and the, vacation and all that stuff for the HR stuff. That's what the clerk.
Excuse me. You're saying the deputy clerk ran the office?
Well, it was
Pretty much.
more or less the office manager. The city clerk
The
is
office
in
manager.
charge of all of
Yeah, okay.
the office, but
The city clerk responsibilities was pretty much to run the operation of the.
right, of the office, yep.
So Dylan, you think you can draft that language and then bring it back next time? We can just vote on it and.
Mr. Chairman, and any chance we can get it ahead of the meeting so we could peruse it and, study it a little bit? Thanks.
I will try to make sure that it is the legal department and not me who's making the edits this time. So the next section is 2-13 Planning Board. I don't think there's anything to touch on this. It's,
I had a question. Do they have a term?
they do. It's, there's an accompanying ordinance.
Yeah, it's not defined here, but they do. I believe it's 5 years. No, that's zoning. I'll pull it up. If you give me a moment, I'll pull it up.
There is, both planning and zoning have an accompanying ordinance that lays out the details of it. Yeah, I don't remember what the reasoning for it is. I think it was, if the terms are supposed to change, it's easier to amend if it's in an ordinance.
Planning boards were created by state law, which happened significantly after charters.
So, and this goes for the zoning board too. I'm perfectly fine leaving both of those alone.
The planning board is also 5-year terms. It's section 2-168 of the Code of Ordinances.
As long as it is addressed, that's all I was concerned about.
It is.
By ordinance is fine.
So section 215 is the audit. Does anyone want to talk about the audit, or do we want to wait until Malcolm's here?
I'd rather wait with Malcolm.
All right, we'll wait until Malcolm is here to talk on that. That brings us to 2-16, which is procedure of the council with regard to ordinances.
Which one you're on now, Mr. Chairman?
2-16.
-16, okay, so 14 is okay, is that right?
Yep, that's zoning.
Now you go too fast for me now. You have to slow it down. All right. Okay, got it.
Okay. So my question I want to ask is there's the notion, or there's the mandate in here with the process of advertising in a notice in a newspaper having general circulation in the city. Is that something that's required by state law? Do you know?
No, so state law does have a lot of requirements on how things are noticed underneath the Open Meetings Act and certain procedures, especially in the world of planning and zoning. I try very hard to never give a policy position, but I'm gonna get really close to making a policy suggestion right now. This makes things really complicated when it doesn't have to. I don't know that it provides value. Everything about advertising and posting of ordinances, I'm not sure it still provides value.
Also very expensive.
It is very expensive. It's very time consuming. It's slightly different than state law. So I have like these cheat sheets on how everything needs to get posted. It's doubly tricky when you get to the budget section, but there's state laws on how advertising and mailed notice and the timeframes and all that. 48 hours, not including weekends, holidays. I don't know that you need any of this anymore. I think at the time it was created, it was very important because that didn't exist on the state level.
Mr. Chairman, would this be a good time to look at section 216.5? I'm noticing on the paper that we received last month that there's suggested language that should be stricken from section 5. Publication, I think that's what you're starting to talk about.
I think Mike is right that we've had a particular issue with the focus section of that language. And I am dangerously going beyond legal advice and suggesting that the entire section is a little bit duplicative with state law. Well, at least the advertising portions of it.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual number is, but I know over the years, the city has spent quite a lot of money on advertising, especially if something has been misadvertised. We can't put it in the local paper and we've had to use Providence Journal. The rates are significantly higher to advertise in there.
So the suggestion, though, that's on this paper, because I don't know if you have it with you, it says section 2-16.5, and it should say publication of ordinances after final passage, period. And then according to this, the rest of section 5 would be stricken. That kind of,
Excuse me, but through the chair. It leaves you hanging, doesn't it? What are the publication of ordinances after final passage, period? So
Is that just publication in the clerk's office? Is that
where?
publication online? Is that, do you?
I imagine what it just requires publication. So all of our ordinances are published right now. I'm working off of the Municode website. So that's the publication of
Be
ordinances.
publicly available?
Yeah, to be made publicly available.
well, he does have things listed here, like, it says clearly see 45-24-53. Do we want to eliminate the advertising requirement after first passage and limit notice of posting on the city website with the time and place when it will be heard for second passage? Should ordinances have a requirement to describe what an ordinance does or intends to do? And on a second passage, if there is an amendment, do we want to eliminate the need to repost and advertise the amendment before it's passed again for final passage at another meeting? So that kind of, I think, in theory, if we answer those, from what I'm understanding, then that publication of ordinance for final passage would kind of just make a little bit more sense. But I'm just asking because that was, we were asked to look at this.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
Excuse me, isn't the budget an ordinance?
It is.
And it has its
So-
own separate
That's why you have to keep advertising and,
It's-
so doesn't that have to be published though?
It does. And the budget ordinance has its own set of procedures with its own notice and advertising provisions separate from a normal ordinance. So do zone changes underneath East Providence Code. That's not a state law thing. That is a East Providence charter thing. You have to do both. You can't do one or the other. That's the other. It's a mousetrap.
A question on number 6. The expiration of 20 days. And this is it may sound silly, but do we mean work days, calendar days, or doesn't it need to be determined?
I would read that without any specification of just being 20 calendar days, but it's a good point to keep coming back to. This language does get confusing, but if you imagine now you have all this posting, all these materials online. When this language was created, there was none of that. This meeting itself, I believe, is live on the internet. Nothing was being televised or pushed out like that before. Whether or not you had a stenographer at a meeting I'm not sure. That was actually pretty expensive. I don't know that that was always done. So all of this was designed for transparency that today is roughly covered by the publication of the meetings and then the publication of the minutes and the outcomes online. I don't know that the goal of this is to like be 10% as good as we already are today without it.
The chair. So, Mr. Solicitor, even though you said you don't want to recommend, but you're recommending, we have to be obviously transparent. We have to have
Yes.
the public be able to, get accessibility to these ordinances. So what is your recommendation? What should we strike? Should we completely strike Section 2 and Section 5? I mean, in your opinion, and
You can probably come pretty close to striking two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 has value. There's a state law for it, but 7 has value. 1 and 8 are nice procedurally. I would want to be a little bit more careful than that. I wouldn't just take an axe to it. I would want to read it closely to see if there's any other valuable clauses in there. And I think your point about transparency is very well taken. I do not mean to be removing any level of transparency. We could explicitly reference that all of this shall be done subject to state law or any ordinances the council passes in regard to, so that at least it's just not in the charter. The charter is so hard to amend. When state law gets updated, the 12 of us have to get together for 6 months in order to fix it, as opposed to like a council can do it in a 2-week window.
So through the chair, Mr. Chairman, do you feel it's appropriate if we send this to the solicitor, the entire section 2-16, to have the solicitor draw up a recommendation on what should be stricken and what we should add or clarify?
Yes. Yeah.
So is that duly noted, Dylan?
Duly noted.
All right. You need a motion, Mr. Chair? No. Okay. Thank you.
So unless there's any further input, that brings us to the end of Article 2.
Mr. Chairman, would this be a good place to make a break?
I was going to ask if this is a good stopping point.
We can begin our next meeting with the mayor.
Well, we'll look at the language changes. If they're acceptable, we can vote to approve and then move on to Article 3. And I promise as we get further into the charter, it gets faster to move through it. The city council and the mayor sections take the longest. They are the longest parts. Then other than that, it's really just the section on the budget that is very complicated. But so in that case, Madam Secretary, you read the next item.
Move to adjourn.
Is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.